Hey everyone, this is a video on the design of my wiring harness. It's for a Subaru Vanagon and it fits in the rear tail light on the passenger side of the van's engine bay. Originally I had it built to go into the rear bench seat, but when I decided to reconfigure it, I had to basically rip it all apart and extend a bunch of things and put it back together. And this is what I ended up with. If you take a look at it, we've got the ECU down here in a protective box. It has a clear cover so that I can look inside, see if there is getting some condensation in there or anything. And but it is fully gasketed and for outdoor use. And then as it goes around, we'll talk about the other components, but it eventually ends up at the black box. So why don't I just go ahead and take some close-ups of what each part does and we can walk through it. So here's the box, and the box, like I said, is for outdoor use. It's completely gasketed. It contains the ECU to protect it from the elements, as well as all this other junk, which I didn't want to have laying around in my rear bench seat. It can also eventually fit in this, which will be from small cards, the code eliminator, so I don't see all kinds of warning light codes flash on. It also has some fasteners I built to make sure it stays secured in the engine bay and doesn't bounce around. And then I went to the junkyard and I pulled this OBD2 connector panel off of a dashboard in a Subaru, and so I've got that in there, so you'll have easy access to engine codes when you need it. And then there's a grommet that I got from a truck. This is from a steering column. As the steering column goes through the firewall, it was a big enough grommet to fit the whole wiring harness through and then also keep the weather out. So that's the basics on the box. The beauty of this harness is it's just basically all in one. As the wiring goes around the engine bay, different components for the engine are reached, and it's all just one part, or one wire. The first thing that comes off of here is for your coolant bottle, and this is actually an upgraded coolant level sensor that I got from a Jetta, a 1990s Jetta, I believe. But it fits on the coolant bottle and it keeps it nice and secure. And that's the first thing that comes off the main harness. The second thing is something I put in myself to extend to the front of the van. I have a Speedo-based VSS, and I also split the OBD2 signal to go up to the front of the van. And I run 4 wires through this, and then I have spliced in an engine bay safe connector, so it'll be safe from the elements as well. But the 4 are VSS signal, power and ground, and the OBD2 signal. Then as we keep going around the engine bay, we come to the fuel pump wire. I actually had to redo this because when I took my engine out, it cracked, which is not a problem. I just put this in and heat shrinked it, and it should be safe enough from the elements. And then next, as we come along, we branch out down into the Subaru's alternator wires. So as we come down, we have the AC compressor and the alternator itself, and then the voltage sense wire. And that is actually just circled back on itself right there and connected up to the alternator stud itself. The AC compressor wire comes up here and it splices into the AC switch wire that goes to the ECU. And then I only send one AC wire to the front, or I'm sorry, to the black box. That's all that's needed. Off of this as well, you might be familiar with seeing, here's the starter. wire, and this is an 8-gauge cable that comes off and connects up to the starter. That also feeds down into the alternator as well. As we keep going around then, we come to the engine harness connectors. I have a 2001 Subaru Legacy 2.5, and this is how you connect up to the Subaru engine harness. And continuing with Subaru, as we go around, we have some oxygen sensors. We have the upstream and the downstream. And on a Subaru harness, you'll generally have another sub-harness, but there's no need for that. I just extended the wires all the way to make sure that they reach each of these sensors on the exhaust system. And last but not least, we have the wires that go to the black box. So the first that comes up has the grommet on it, and this reaches right to the stud on the battery. And then I also extended the 4 wires I previously talked about, which are the VSS signal, power, ground, and the OBD2, just in case I need to do something in the black box instead of having the separate wire extension out on the side. I might need the VSS signal as well for cruise control when I add that in, so that gives me an opportunity to hit it right there. And then finally, we have the classic 7-pin connector. And off of this, here is the AC wire that I talked about earlier that's spliced through. I need to connect that up to the van's air conditioning. Here's the alternator wire that came all the way from the alternator. It's the classic blue. This is the ignition. It has a 15 amp fuse in it in case that blows. That connects right up to the Vanagon. And then we have the coolant temp sensor. These aren't connected yet because there needs to be a resistor in between them. The way that the Subaru temp reads versus how the Vanagon instrument panel will read it is a little bit off. So a resistor in there will help them both be on the same level. And there you have it. This is the end product of my wiring harness project. And I'm very happy with it. I think it should work out just fine. I already did a dry run and everything worked great before I put the loom on. But now it's all patched up and ready to get in the van. Thanks a lot. Hope this helps with any questions you have on your own wiring.